in the AV world, we do get socked into our booths and our production rooms, and we have a tendency to kind of just live there. Like, this is where we are. Our whole world starts to revolve around there, which is dangerous, by the way.
Your sole job in that time that you're running that camera is to show the viewer what they need to see.
Church media teams around the world are filled with volunteers whose experience ranges from the consummate professional to the absolute newbie. Here are 5 more things that we wish every church media team knew.
The person who's running the camera, if you don't realize this or not, you are extremely important. Extremely important. You have a very important job. Your sole job in that time that you're running that camera is to show the viewer what they need to see. And that's different than shooting the thing, okay? It's a mindset thing. It is, I am here to deliver to the viewer the best possible experience possible so that they are engaged, not distracted. Don't just swipe off and move on to the next thing, especially when we're dealing in this digital world and there's digital entertainment everywhere. And like I said, most of them are using their phones to do it. As a shooter, your job is to make sure that you are showing the person who is watching exactly what they need to see in the best possible way. That is a very heavy responsibility. I liken that to being parallel in responsibility all the way up there with the worship leader and the pastor. The pastor is responsible for delivering what the Holy Spirit wants being delivered, the message that God wants to speak during that time. He is the conduit for that. The worship pastor is there to usher you into a place of worship. Our job is to convey that. So we have to take that, the reality of what's going on in the room, and we have to deliver that to the viewer in the best possible way. That is a huge responsibility. It's not just stick a camera and, he moved over here. Hang on, let me move the camera, and a guy bumped into it and, oops, and all this kind of stuff. No, you have to take it very seriously because you are the one who is providing the window for people who are not there. And that's very, very important.
Just realizing that what we do is a calling is important. That actually ties into my next one, which is remember that God didn't call everyone to the same ministry that He called you to. This is a rule that I think is really important for anybody in ministry, period. I'll kind of give my personal example of how I learned this lesson back a while back. I ran a parachurch ministry. That was all I did for 10 years. That was my full-time position. I did AV help for churches. I did leadership development, worship team development, lots of conferences and all this different kind of stuff. I just saw this great importance to my ministry, and I had to raise funds for it. And, I would hold these fundraiser events, and I'd walk away and I would know people who came had the means to help my ministry, but then they might not, or they might give a little bit when I know they're actually capable of giving a whole lot. And I would just get really frustrated about how can these people, not do this? And it was like God was like, hey, like, you're not the only show out there. You're not the only ministry that exists. Just because I've called you to make this your primary ministry, I haven't called other people to make it their primary ministry. These people who you invited here who maybe gave a little or didn't give anything to your ministry, they're going to go over and they're going to give a whole lot of money to this other ministry over here because that's what I'm calling them to do. They're faithful, even though they're not faithful to your ministry. And I think that's really important because in the AV world, we do get socked into our booths and our production rooms, and we have a tendency to kind of just live there. Like, this is where we are. And our whole world starts to revolve around there, which is dangerous, by the way, because you really need to be going to small group classes and D groups and things like that. Don't allow yourself to get siloed. But when we get in there and we're like, we just need this mic or we just need this camera, but the church says they don't have the money for it. Don't they understand the importance of what we're doing? The answer is yes, they do. But it's not the only thing the church is called to do. And it's not, you're asking volunteers to help and they decide not to come and join your team. That can be really hard and frustrating, but you got to be able to look at it and say, then maybe that's because God's calling them to do something else. This is the ministry God's calling me to. It can be and should be the most important thing to me, but it doesn't mean it's the most important thing to everybody else on the planet. I think that's a really important lesson for us to learn.
If you're enjoying this video, if you're learning a few things, if you're getting some value from what we're doing here today, then be sure to subscribe to the Church Media Creators channel and ring the bell and set your notifications so that you get everything that we're doing and don't miss a thing. Remember, we're here to help you leverage technology, amplify the gospel, and change lives. Be sure to subscribe.
The person that is engineering the live stream, if you're, like I'm engineering this one right here, I am picking the shots and determining when the lower thirds need to come on. Your job is to make sure that the viewer sees exactly what they need to see when they need to see it. So we talked about it from the camera operator standpoint. Now, at our church, Curtis, we have one person. We have 6 cameras. One is actually operated by a person in real time. And with all those other ones, we are able to get other aspects of the stage, of the area where action is happening. And as the person who is live streaming, who is engineering, it is my job to make sure that the viewer is seeing what they need to see, how much of it, and when they need to see it. And my job is also to help keep them stimulated visually, right? And keep their brain engaged in what's going on by knowing when to change the shot. I know that people start getting glassy-eyed, when they're watching television. And so I need to put something else in front of them, the same thing, but a different perspective maybe, so that their brain has a little reset. If I don't, then I can cause them to disengage with what's going on. So I need to show them what they need to see, when they need to see it, and I need to make the best choices possible. I'm going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. But I'm responsible, and it is my ministry at that moment to deliver the message to them in a way that keeps them engaged and keeps them undistracted. So there's that balance between causing a distraction and keeping someone engaged. And it's much more encompassing when you are the one who is engineering the live stream versus a camera operator whose job is just what's in that viewfinder during that time. When you have multiple shots that you need to do, you have to engage anymore. And it's a mindset, and you have to be thinking like that it is my job to determine that the best way to keep them engaged is to have me talking full screen, or I've been talking a little bit long, so the best thing to do is to go back to a 2-shot with me and Curtis so that you can see Curtis nodding and agreeing with the brilliance that I'm speaking.
Enlist more volunteers. If the ministry lives and dies by your attendance and what you're doing, then it will die at some point, because it can't stay that way. The job is to multiply. So like in 2 Samuel 21, you see David raises giant killers. He's not the only one who's killed a giant. He's taught others to kill giants, and he has servants who are out there on the battlefield with him. Our job is to raise up giant killers, which in the tech world, a lot of times it feels like we face giants because usually we're undermanned, under-teched. We don't have the right stuff to make things happen the way that they want it to happen, so we do our best, and we have to be willing to relinquish control to those whom we bring in, and intentionally enlist help, intentionally train, and then intentionally let people do it the way they're going to do it too. Because if you micromanage them, they won't hang around. If you say, here's the one right way to do it, well, that's really just a pride-based issue. You're not really willing to let other people work in that ministry, but you've got to enlist workers. You've got to enlist help, and it's the biblical way the church is supposed to function. Is it a media ministry, or is it just somebody's pet project? It needs to be a media ministry, which means it's engaging people in the church, giving them purpose, helping them participate in the work of the church. So enlist more volunteers. If you say we already have a lot of volunteers, great, double them. Whatever it takes, just provide more opportunities and help enlist new people so they can grow in their faith and their engagement with the church through the media ministry.
Getting started is important. Once you get started, if it means getting a tripod and taking your phone and putting it on there and going to Facebook or to YouTube and hitting go live and setting it on the front pew where it's kind of angled up at the pulpit, and you're live streaming that way, you have started. That is fantastic. You are going, now let's just incrementally get better, okay? But the big picture that I want everybody to get, and I think when you get this, it can really up your game, is that you're not live streaming your service, okay? You're not live streaming church or anything. You're making television. You are making TV, okay? All of us, except for some weirdos who just want to sit around and read books all the time. I don't know who does that. But all of us are familiar with watching television. We do it in the evenings. We do it in the middle of the afternoon, at lunch, whatever. We are all accustomed to sitting down in front of the TV or sitting down with our tablet, our phone, or something like that and consuming content. How many of us still have a Netflix account? All of us, right? Everybody's got a Netflix account. We got a Hulu account. We've got an Amazon Prime account. You're all watching television, okay? And because of that, we're used to seeing live events. We're used to seeing sporting events. We're used to seeing episodic, dramatic television, comedy, all that sort of stuff. And everything that we see on there is produced, has certain production values, has certain rules of thumb that they follow to deliver the content that they're going to do. And if you start thinking, I'm not live streaming our service, it's just a church service, it's just, we're going to stick up a camera and just catch what we catch. If you start thinking, I'm producing television, I'm producing a visual experience that needs to be engaging, entertaining, keep the person's attention, just like every other producer out there in the world that is making whatever, whether it's the Super Bowl, a NASCAR event, the 6 o'clock news, whatever. If you are thinking in that term, you will try to deliver the best experience. Your job is to take what's happening in that room and deliver it through the television. You're making television. Try to reach those standards as best you can, given your limitations, and try to just wring out the best possible quality and experience that you can with what you have. Oh,
sorry, David. Far too distracted reading my book. I guess I could have been watching TV, but, I was far more interested in my book.
What is that, David Copperfield or what?
It is important to realize that, we're producing something that's different than what's in the room. And I do think that matters. We've got to realize what we do in the room and what's viewed online are not the same thing and can't be the same thing. And so we want to make sure that we acknowledge that and we don't pretend like they are the same thing. That's a dangerous thing across the board to do, really, to pretend that they're the same thing. So we do have to treat them differently. Let's this
go with
is
your
my bonus. This one's free, like we've been charging for anything else today, but this one's free. It's actually a real simple one, and it is, no matter what system it is, design your system to be simple, okay? I've watched guys go in and build these really elaborate setups, whether it's audio, video, streaming setups, making it all work together, and it just gets more and more and more and more complicated over time. And in the long run, all that means is whoever comes after you is going to tear it all apart and rebuild it from scratch, and all your work is going to be gone. Why'd they do it this way? Why'd they do this? Why do they have this? So what it means is design your system to be simple. And if you're saying, well, for me to add this component, it's just really complicated, then it may not be the right component to add, or you may need to scale back and then add that component in so that it's in the right order. Because what we tend to do is layer things on top of things on top of things, and then it gets complicated, more and more complicated, whereas sometimes we may be on the fourth layer, we want to add something new, but that really means we've got to tear apart back to the second layer to add it right, to keep the design simple. Plus, it's really hard to train volunteers on complex systems. So always be looking at how to simplify your system. As you add things, even look at how do I make this simple in my process.
Whether you're trying to fine-tune your skills or whether you're trying to get into the right mindset, having a successful church media team takes skill and practice and dedication, which is why I'm guessing that you're here. So if you enjoyed this and have gotten something out of it, then be sure to watch this video right here where we take it to another level. Now use what you've learned and go change lives. We'll see you in the next video.